you get this echo going around. There we go. Hello, everybody. Let me flip the slide here. Well, I was actually just looking at my LinkedIn page. It turns out that I've already been 23 years president of OS2 Voice, or even longer. I've lost count. I've done this introductory before, but you'll kind of get to the point why I'm doing it right now. I worked on ECS for 12 years. I've lost count how many Warpstock Europes I did. I was involved in probably 10 to 15 of them. The last 10 years, I did most of the work by myself. I've been helping BitWise Works out to get their funding for the browser. Actually helped to get BitWise Works even started, and a lot more. I probably forgot some of the stuff that I worked on, but just like a few other people in this Warpstock, in the Warpstock presentations, I am involved and still doing a lot of stuff in the background. The browser status. As you know, BitWise Works has been working over the last couple of years on porting a new browser. And I was on the point of actually getting a, Martin, you can still hear me?
Yes, we're here. Yes.
Coming through fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, okay, thank you. No, thank you. Okay. The question is, where's the browser? Why is it not available? Development has slowed down. I was actually hoping to get a new RPM build from Dimitri finally, but what I was afraid of has happened. The funding for BitWise Works is dried up, and Dimitri has had to resort to taking a part-time job and not being able to work full-time on the browser anymore. So it's been slowed down. I've been thinking long and hard what to put in this presentation, and some of the slides might, some people might not like it, but from my personal perspective, it's the current truth in the situation we're in. So yeah, I've tried to bring out newsletters. I've been short on time to get that done. It's also, for me, nothing else than a big passion OS2. What I said in my presentation in May during Warpstock Europe still stands. We've actually, as a community, have been extremely lucky, very lucky, that a vast majority of the funding that was provided by BitWise Works came from a group of about 100 donors. My personal estimate is that the community is way bigger. And people certainly have a choice to decide if they want to donate to BitWise Works development, yes or no. I'll get back into the into what BitWise Works does and what the rest of the community is doing in terms of porting software. Over the past 2.5 years, Voice has been collecting a lot of the money needed for the browser port. The German OS2 community has also been contributing considerably. I'll go to the next slide now. If people think that BitWise Works is something that makes a profit, well, Herbig and Sylvan don't get a salary, and Sylvan in 2020 put in about 7,000 euros of his own money to keep Dimitri working forward. So I'm just emphasizing again that nobody's getting rich here. One of the things that the development of the porting the browser takes long is because it's a heck of a lot of work. Compared to a Linux environment, there is no plug-and-play environment with the whole build system. BitWise Works currently maintains 300 DLLs for OS2 that are available via rpmnetlabs.org. For the new browser, a tremendous amount of code had to be added to LibCX for functionality that OS2 currently doesn't provide. And lastly, a lot of things that were encountered when we started the whole project with the new browser was that they couldn't be foreseen until we got started with the project. The main DLL of the browser, the WebKit DLL, is probably the largest DLL on OS2 ever compiled. It's 250 megabytes big, and that's just the WebKit DLL that makes the browser work. I thought I'd briefly look at a more bigger picture of what BitWise Works does and how it fits from my personal perspective in the community. It wouldn't come as a surprise for a lot of people that we are a small community, and within that community there's a smaller group of people that are doing the work that makes OS2 what it is today. ArcaOS does the drivers, but they cannot take on all the work. I think it's also important to emphasize, at least for here, that BitWise Works is not the only party that are porting software to OS2. We've got people like Paul Smedley, our friend Ko from South Korea, who ports VLC Media Player, for example. We've got Andrei Vaskelin, who lives in the Far East in Russia. We've got Albert Paul, and we've got a few other people that are helping to port software to OS2. I understand if people felt left out when Voice hasn't been crediting them for the port work that they have been doing. I'm sorry, that was never the intention, but I don't want to leave you guys out. The only reason that I have been emphasizing BitWise Works and that the community needs to provide sponsorship for BitWise Works is because we need at least one full-time developer that works on maintaining parts of the whole compile factory, LIBC and GCC. And if that long-term comes to a complete halt, we have a problem. That is the honest truth. And so some of the porting work, for example, that Ko does is that he's using currently to port VLC Media Player to OS2, he's using Qt. But that Qt was once ported by BitWise Works. So I'm saying that the overall framework that we have with people is that we can't miss the people that port, like Paul Smedley, Ko, but we also can't miss BitWise Works. We need all of them to be able to contribute to them. So I just thought I'd emphasize that it's not just BitWise Works that's contributing to a lot of these projects, but they do the large projects like OpenOffice and porting Qt. When it comes to BitWise Works in the community, I also get the impression that as a community by ourselves, I think that we should sometimes consider moving more quickly forward. If anybody has seen the OS2 versus Windows NT shootout from David Barnes, which was the guy that did the marketing for OS2 2.1, he said that OS2 was alive thanks to grassroots people and not IBM's marketing skills. He basically says that it are the users that make the platform move forward. It's now 2021, and I sometimes, after having looked around in the OS2 community for close to a quarter of a century, I sometimes think that we talk too long about certain topics and not move forward swiftly enough. And that sometimes hurts us in the long run. We talk too long and we don't make a decisive decision and then move forward. At a certain moment, move forward. I noticed that with the browser. I understand if people have questions, but I also feel that we should simply move forward at a certain moment. Also, when it comes to adapting certain technologies, we are sometimes late at the party. And with our small human resources, by adapting new technology late, we hurt ourselves because a portion of the user base leaves because we don't have up-to-date technology, such as a browser. I came up actually while having dinner with this terminology. From my perspective, more and more OS2 users are turning from users into consumers. There are still people who want to work with OS2, play with it, but I get a real big feeling that people more and more want to see that when they put the USB stick in a system, they don't want to work on it for a week to get it to work. That is certainly no longer the case, but it's also with the software. Or as it's better put, and the person who came up with this brilliant quote is that people are not asking for it, people are expecting it, such as a working browser. That's what I mean with 20 years ago, a lot of people were interested in working with OS2, spending nights long end to get their system to work, but more and more people are expecting it to work out of the box, but also expect software to be available for it. One of the things that I experience this with is that I've asked other people to help with Warpstocks or write a report when they visit it, and that never happens. That's not a problem. I'm not condoning those people, but that's what I mean is that there are very few people that are doing the work, and those people, if we want to keep using OS2, we need to support these people. So why do you think I'm sometimes think that we are the victim of our own ideology? If I think about the RPM discussion and everything that came forward, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong, but what has certainly resulted in it is that I think that in a couple of cases we shot ourselves in the foot for strange reasons. I certainly vividly remember that when the Warpin installer from Ulrich Müller came out, that people wanted to continue to see application being packaged as in the IBM application installer. It came across to me as a repetitive pattern that we didn't want to say goodbye to the old and welcome the new. The same thing is true for using old hardware. I certainly also am to blame for it. I've got an old laptop sitting here next to me that's old, but yeah, ArcaOS cannot test all of the hardware as well. So what I'm saying is that as a community, we can do a lot more by moving more together in a joint fashion and not have everlasting debates whether what's right or wrong. We have very, very limited human resources, and we see that with the whole browser discussion, how much time it takes to get one of these big projects off the ground. And lastly, remember, IBM does not do anything for OS2 anymore. It's up to us. So for the future, I've got planned that there will be a Warpstock 2022 in Frankfurt next year. Somewhere in May. A date is yet to be planned. As things now look, it will probably again be a physical Warpstock where people can visit. We will do our utmost best to try and continue to get funding for BitWise works. I will soon be selling a whole box of rare OS2 commodities sponsored, donated by Alex Taylor. So, and the proceeds will go to BitWise works. And I'm trying to look at getting the newsletter revived, the OS2 newsletter from Voice by hiring an editor. Then finally, the browser. Yesterday, no, it was actually this morning or late last night, I got some links sent via Telegram from Dimitri with the new browser. These are not yet in an RPM package, and I can certainly tell you that in order for the browser to be installable, you want to use RPM and not something else, because the file dependencies took me 1.5 hours to figure it all out, because there are so many files associated with it. I hope I have the proper combination now. It starts up, but it could lock up the VM, and that's probably then there's some sort of a memory leak that we don't know yet, or I've got a wrong subset of DLLs. YouTube, I just tested actually, it works. So I'm going to switch screens here now because I've set up a VM here. Let me switch to that. Can everybody see my OS2 desktop right now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes, okay. If there are any questions, are there, by the way, any questions on the IRC chat or on the YouTube chat?
Nothing yet.
No? Okay. Well, it took a bit of fiddling to get it done, but I've actually got here the latest Otter browser running with the latest Qt port that was done to OS2. So we no longer have the simple browser. We now have the Otter browser, which has been ported. It takes a little while to start up. On a real life system, it runs a whole lot faster. I don't know if it's going to restore my login now at Gmail that I was working with. I was just testing that. Are there any pages that people would be interested for me to visit? I tried to do that last time. We've made a lot of progress on the browser. So I was wondering if there were people that wanted me to log in certain websites so that I can demonstrate if that they're working. Well, there goes the first crash. Let me restart it. Martin, I thought that there was one website with open source project that wasn't working. Was that GitHub, that certain features were not working?
Yes, GitHub has some issues with the old Firefox.
Okay. Is that already noticeable on the first entry page, or do you need to sign in and then go to a specific page then?
I think you need to go to some repository, and there was some icons missing. But well, from now it's looking very nice. Even the animation is working there. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I refer to, and maybe, sorry if an expert is in the room and I'm using the wrong terminology, but this is in my book HTML5. This is simply the new level of web development. Now, one other thing I can do is I can, one page I know that doesn't work anymore, for example, is patreon.com. You could no longer log in there, or you could not make a credit card. There it goes again. Or you couldn't make a credit card donation. As I said, the problem is that I am not 100% certain if I have the proper matching set of DLLs, and that's why it could potentially be crashing. I was actually hoping that today I could have announced that it would be sent out to the first beta testers for the browser and see how stable it is. I already know that people are using the simple browser. I know that Jan-Erik Larka is using it, and there are a couple of other users from the Dutch OS2 user group. That simple browser is already publicly available. You can download that, and you can find that in the OS2 voice news announcements. But this new version of the browser also now has, and you would be expecting that it would work, but this one also has copy-paste support, which was one of the last features to be implemented. So we're now off to getting more stability. Martin, what is the Google spreadsheet called again? I rarely use it. You've got an Office suite online.
Yeah, it's like Google Docs or Google Spreadsheet. It's not. I also doesn't use it a lot. Google Docs.
Because I seem to recall that Google Docs, does that still work with Firefox 45? And if people are asking what type of what the system requirements are, the browser is extremely resource hungry. But one other downside that by using one of these more modern browsers, you also get websites that are way bigger than normal. Let me actually show you that for normal browsing, this actually works pretty decent. In fact, when I run it, not in a virtual machine that I'm running it right now, but on my old dual-core laptop, for me personally, I get the impression that web pages that are not that complicated, such as OS2 World, load a whole lot faster. But as I said, this is inside a VM. I didn't have any other option to demo it to you. So, but on a normal system, this thing is a whole lot more responsive. Are there any other websites that people want me to test? I'm just looking here in the Alex, I don't know if you can hear me. You said Google Docs not terribly well. Do you mean that it's not working with Firefox currently anymore? One of the things that you can do that I don't know if Firefox 45 really does it that well anymore. One of the websites that I've recently used to test the browser continuously is open a website like CNN.com, because it has an awful lot of windows on it that it has to load. Come on. So you can see it that it loads the entire website, but also as you can see on on GitHub, that it actually also loads all of the content again. So, are there any questions on the YouTube chat there, Martin, or not?
There's no like questions there.
Well, actually, what I'd like to know from people is that I just mentioned basically some of the things that, well, next to a new browser, I think it's also time that for certain technological items that move forward, I think that we're always late in adapting them. And I'm hoping that in the community, we can actually start having a discussion. And when a new technology comes up, don't embrace it that late, because to be honest, I think that we've shot ourselves in the foot a couple of times by doing that. And one of the big problems that we have as a community is that we've got very few human resources to get the work done. So that's why we should always should consider moving forward more quickly and support people that are doing the work. That's basically the thing. But yeah, the thing is, the browser is currently not finished because we have a lack of funding. So I'm still trying to do an appeal to you guys that if you want to see free open source software being ported on OS2, we need to support the people that, from my opinion, do the bulk of the work. So I'm just trying to load the CNN.com site, but it's being awfully slow. I don't know if this is the browser or the internet connection that is doing it. Okay, well, that's what I wanted to show you. I'm actually hoping that Dimitri can finish the RPMs in the coming week. He was short on time. As I said, he now has a part-time job next to doing the OS2 work, which takes priority. So I'm actually hoping that the new browser can be sent off in RPM format to testers, where we can sort out the last crashes, and then the new browser will then be made publicly available. One of the things that will be changing in order to try and improve to make BitWise works more financially sustainable, or at least more future-proof, is to start charging money in a subscription form, just like we do with OpenOffice, for the availability of, for example, things like the browser. Martin, what do you currently have on the screen? Still the web browser?
Yes, I still have the web browser.
Oh, sorry. Let me change here. 1 moment, please.
Okay.
Sorry, I had the wrong field open.
You can stop the screen sharing, right?
1 moment. Sadly, this laptop doesn't have 2 screens attached to it, so. Can you see the presentation again? Okay, yeah. Well, so I'm actually hoping that before the end of September, we will have a group of testers working on testing the browser and getting the final quirks out of it, especially some of the random crashes. There's very good debugging built into it. What will happen is that the plan is currently that the browser will be made available in 2 versions, one with a a web page that will be glued into the browser, and another one that will be available when you make a donation that no longer has that page built into it anymore. So simply put, we need your donations. If we as a community want to have ported software, we need every person to help out. That includes Paul Smedley, our friends from Russia who port software. It's a very fragile ecosystem, and if one of the building blocks falls out, long term, we're in pretty bad shape. As I said, I feel that I've been trying to find out how big the community is, and I simply feel that too little people are donating. Even small contributions are welcome, but in order to encourage you to make a donation, we will start introducing benefits for people who do donate. So the new browser will be available free of charge with a NAC screen built into it. And there are also considerations that, for example, updates are made available earlier to people who donate than people who do not donate. And with these types of incentives, we hope to convince you that making a donation is in the common interest for us to keep OS2 viable as a platform to safely browse the internet. So there was one suggestion that I got privately from Mr. Volti, or that was that, and that is that you can actually see the new website. We've already been working on this. Voice actually now has a new web store, what I call a donation shop. And if you actually go to donation.os2voice.org, then you can make a donation there. We've actually built a complete web shop for this. That is this web shop, and eventually the RPMs that people make a donation to will be available via a password-protected RPM. That said, just to be absolutely clear, all the source code from BitWise Works is available free of charge. There is no delay in making it publicly available. It's just like with the OpenOffice binaries that they charge money for it in order for you to have an incentive to sponsor their ongoing efforts to keep OS2 on the software side viable. Okay, I hope that was not too much information, and I hope that we can continue to use OS2 for another couple of years to come. All of the work on the ArcaOS side is very impressive. I mean, it's 2021, and I hope that we can soon release a new browser to the OS2 community, finally put us on a level that you can go to a website and you don't have to start up your Linux machine or look on your tablet to visit the web page, and that you can actually use OS2 again to do your daily web browsing needs. Okay, that's it. Thank you for your time, and if there are any questions, please let me know.
Thanks, Roderick. I'm looking for questions on the YouTube chat and on IRC.
And otherwise, I am almost also open in the time we have left to hear suggestions from people how we can raise money because I think it's quite apparent now that, the question really is, what as a community do we want? What are we expecting? We don't have to count on IBM to do it, and we haven't been doing it for the last 20 years. So, what is it that people want?
Yeah.
And if people want certain things, how do you move forward? That's what my presentation was all about.
Okay.
Make as a community, make a decision, and then stop the discussion at a certain moment and move forward together. Yes?
First, Roderick, can you minimize the window or stop the screen?
Oh, sorry.
Because I'm right there in the...
Sorry, one moment. Let me... Where did you go?
Just minimize the window. Okay, that's good. Let me...
I think you should see me again now.
Yeah.
Okay. It's very silent. I wasn't expecting any questions, but
No, there are no more questions.
There's a few on chat, aren't there?
let me go over there.
Because there is more like some discussion, but I don't see like any.
Well, I do see a question from Doug. How much money does BitWise works each month to work on OS2 full time? And that's that's between €2,000 to €2,500 a month, but that does mean that you've got somebody working on porting code 40, 50 hours a week, and that's roughly the amount that it takes. And so far we've been able to keep it up. But yeah, I see that Doug asked that question, so I hope that answers your question. But what I was trying to point out a couple of months ago is that I've been trying to figure out, like, if we start a next sponsorship campaign, can anybody in the community give me an indication how many private OS2 users there are? Because sometimes when a new sponsor project is started, I get to hear the community is too small for it. But do we actually know how many people are roughly left in the community? We make a lot of assumptions, so
yeah,
I just need to.
Yeah, Roderick, it's kind of hard to find how big or small is the community, well, it's not an easy thing to do, to find out that thing, and well, I think just like you say, we're open to see any more suggestions on how to raise funds for more open source software to be ported, and especially to finish the browser project.
I see here that there was a question on the IRC chat. Yeah, the question is if the web browser would work with the ESX web interface. It will probably work because it's based on the WebKit engine that's also used in the Chrome browser. And yeah, whether we like it or not, that seems to be the default browser engine standard these days. Internet Explorer uses it and Google Chrome uses it, so which has a market share jointly of more than 80%. So yeah, I wish it was different, but it's not. So yeah, and if people are interested in seeing the newsletter being revived, I got an offer from somebody from Estland. I think you know him, Martin. And he wants to start writing content for the OS2 Voice newsletter, but then we need somebody to be, he wants to then be paid for it, so.
Yeah, it will be great to have something writing OS2 content. I don't know if it applies to pay him right now, but with all the other needs that we have, but well, I guess.
What really boils down to as a community is that, you know, if we want to, we need to partly do some of this stuff ourselves. And there are very few people that are doing it. I'm not complaining about it. But if then somebody pops up on OS2 World and says, this and this and this needs to happen with OS2, you know, that's the difficult part. There are so many different things that we can do for OS2. And the question is, what provides, with the limited amount of developers that we have, the best value add so that we have a usable operating system? And that's not always an easy discussion or an easy decision. Have I made mistakes with my browser campaign? Perhaps, but I decided to stick to it and move forward. So I'm hoping that I can donate the OS2 users with jointly all of the VoicePress donations a working browser. So are there any other questions on?
There is a question.
Yeah, YouTube chat.
Yeah. Go ahead, Neil.
Okay, on YouTube chat, there's like a dozen questions. So I'll just start with mine. You said OpenOffice, they were talking about a subscription model, and yet it's a one-time payment per version. It's not a subscription at all. Yeah, the only subscription I know is the Patreon that BitWise set up.
Oh, then I misunderstood it. The last time that I talked to Sylvan about about OpenOffice, is that from what I understood is that when they release a new version, that for that new version you also had to pay for it, or is it a lifetime subscription?
No, that is not a.
Okay. Oh, Neil, were there any other questions on the YouTube chat?
Well, I see a lot of them being answered by Lewis, but you know, one was: are there any major customers who want an OS2, a browser on OS2? Are there any, you know, what did he say? Major.
That's
a major customer interested in a modern browser.
Well, I think I can already read Lewis. I'm not seeing the YouTube chat, but I think I can read Lewis's mind already what he answered, and it's probably that the answer is no.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's the same thing from my eComStation days at Mensis. In all of the years that Mensis put money into porting new browsers to OS2, we had 0 requests from corporate customers to run it, because effectively somewhere around the year 2000, 2002, when the IBM web browser was last ported, most OS2 exclusive OS2 usage from from corporate desktops was phased out. It's now running on virtual machines, and so corporate customers are using the browser that Windows comes with. So that's why there's no corporate demand for a web app. I can disclose that there are a couple of smaller companies that use OS2, but these are small companies with a few employees that have a warm heart to OS2, and they contribute to the browser because they run it OS2 natively on the desktop. But that's maybe 20 to 30 seats worldwide, so that's not really going to make a lot of difference. Are there any other questions on the YouTube chat?
Roderick, I don't know if you already answered this. There is a question on how you're going to choose the beta tester for the browser.
That's primarily going to be a couple of the people that are on the testers list of ArcaOS. Because right now, what I really need is when a bug is reported, I need to have very detailed information coming back, such as an accept queue, and I also need to have a system that I know is properly configured. So that's the first stage of the beta testers. Dimitri and me already have very limited time, so. And I will be honest that there are a couple of things that I see in the Otter browser where it crashes, in my opinion, still too often. And we first want to get those crashes resolved before we release it to a wider audience.
All right, I have another one from a guy. Does BitWise Works have any small programming tasks that volunteers could help with?
Absolutely. they are always looking for volunteers. Who is the person? Maybe I know him already, but I can put him in touch with Sylvan Scherer or Dmitry Komnikov from BitWise Works, and then they can see if they can if somebody can help. I know that they want to update an open GDK port, and for years BitWise Works has been wanting to take on more developers or at least more volunteers to get work done. So yes, any person who's willing to contribute in the smallest sense is more than welcome. You can send an email to president@os2voice.org, and then I can put that volunteer in touch with BitWise Works, or you can contact them directly if you want. So
very good, very good.
Are there any other questions?
Customer large. Oh my God, it keeps going.
Sorry?
There's a lot of chat. Chat's noisy.
Yeah, in general terms, everybody wants a new browser, and they're discussing that. Yeah.
One of the things that I'd like to emphasize, which is very difficult, before I started this presentation, I've thought like, well, here I go again, and I don't have a browser yet. But that's one of the things that makes porting OS2 software, especially these big projects, so time-consuming. You can go back to previous Warpstock videos from Dmitry, in which he explains in more details with some examples how difficult it is to get everything to port and all of the missing bits and pieces that need to be put together to get the code to run on OS2. It's safe to say that OS2 is showing its age of the platform. It's very old, and it's a miracle that we're even able to get the WebKit to compile on OS2. That he said publicly already. So, and that's why it's taking so much time to get it all ported. So, but yes, I also want to have a new browser which comes directly out of the box and it works. So, are there any other questions?
Yeah, I guess they're asking if you can have a subscription on the donations.voice.org website.
For the new browser, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, that will come when it is out of beta. I'm not going to do it. We didn't want to introduce the subscription yet because it's still in beta and it's crashing. So up until that moment, the only thing that we now have is that we simply have a donation button with which you make a donation to support the development of Qt and all of the other work that BitWise Works is doing. So a subscription will come once the browser is out of the beta phase, and then you can make a donation there and you will also get a subscription then. So that's why it's currently not online. We didn't find it fair to start selling a subscription for a browser that still crashes. So. That said, I have used it stable here on my laptop for the last half an hour, visiting not such heavy websites. So.
All right.
Yes, Mr. Faulty is correct, and I still need to make that. I still need to make that more clear, which is still under construction. If you want to make a donation, you go to donation.os2voice.org, and there you need to first create an account and register with all of your address details. I need to know that because of fiscal reasons, where you're coming from as a donator, and then you can make a donation via donation.os2voice.org. Are there any other questions?
Just one thing. Nathan Woodruff is saying he has a spare time and he wants to collaborate also with some development time.
Okay, that's welcome. One other person who is always in the back room, which the community owes also a lot, is a lot of support, in my opinion, that Stephen Levine gives to debugging some of the stuff for BitWise works. He's also one of the maintainers to maintain Open Whatcom and AcceptQ, and he will soon be doing some work to help Dimitri out to keep compiling code. So he's one of the maintainers of the Doug is asking if it's better to donate through BitWise Works Patreon, OS2 Voice, or ArcaOS. Well, if you want to make a donation directly to BitWise Works, I guess that would be fine. All of the money eventually ends up in a single bank account, so. Are there any other questions, Martin?
No, I don't see any more questions, and well, and we are running out of time.
Yes. Yeah. Well, as I said, as a last thing, I hope to see everybody in Europe if the conditions allow it, because somewhere in May 2022, I hope to have a Warpstock Europe in Frankfurt. That was already the location we had planned for 2020, but everybody knows why that got cancelled. So I'm actually hoping to have a real live Warpstock again, where we can meet people. One of the other things that I want to do is I want to create something called Warpstock Reunion, where on the Saturday evening, I am inviting old OS2 users and developers to come to Frankfurt and have a joint dinner. Not for OS2, but to meet some old friends again. I'm making phone calls and sending emails to the community to see how much interest there is for such a event. So, okay, I want to thank everybody for their time. I certainly hope that we can get the browser out soon as possible. I hope I didn't offend anybody with my statements, but I hope you understand that, well, the money's running out. So we want to have a new browser. So it's a chicken egg situation. It's not easy, but well, OS2 as always has more lives than a cat. So that's right. Oh, sorry. No, I see that Louis was answering a question from somebody. Okay. Okay. Thank you for your time. Everybody stay healthy. And well, hope to see you then all next year, as many as possible in person. Can you finally make it to Europe, Martin, for one time?
I don't know if I will ever make it to Europe.
Okay.
Thanks, Roderick. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
And well, we will hook up in a little moment with Louis.
Okay, everybody stay healthy, stay well, and I hope to see you another time online. Take care, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.